We live in an age of noise. Everyone's talking. Online, on stages, in meetings, louder means smarter, faster means better. But something's wrong. The people who hold real power, they're quiet. They speak less. They reveal little. And they win more. There's a reason for that. And it's not accidental, it's Machiavellian. Most people think Machiavelli was a monster, the father of lies, manipulation, cruelty. But that's just what loud people say. The truth is quieter. Machiavelli wasn't teaching evil, he was revealing the game. And the first rule? Don't show your hand, don't speak your mind, don't explain yourself, speak less, win more. Silence isn't passive, it's strategic. It creates fear, it creates mystery, it creates control. Because when you stop talking, people start wondering, they fill the gaps, they project power onto you, and if you stay silent long enough, they'll start fearing what you might say next. In a world addicted to speaking, silence becomes a superpower. This film isn't just about Machiavelli. It's about modern power, how it hides, how it manipulates, how it wins, and most importantly, how you can use it, because the world doesn't reward the loudest, it rewards the most calculated. So here's the real question. What happens when you stop talking? What happens when you shut up and win? Let's begin. Forget what you've heard about Machiavelli. He wasn't a villain, he wasn't heartless. He wasn't teaching people how to be evil. He was exposing how power really works. Niccolò Machiavelli lived in 15th century Florence, a world of betrayals, backstabbing, secret deals. He watched leaders fall, kings lose their heads and empires collapse, not because they were weak, but because they were honest. Honesty doesn't survive in a political jungle. Strategy does. In his book, The Prince, Machiavelli drops the mask. Power is not about virtue, it's about control. The world rewards those who understand perception, not just truth. If people believe you're powerful, then you are. If they believe you're dangerous, then you don't need to fight. If they never know your next move, they can never stop it. Machiavelli taught that leaders must wear a mask, one that shows compassion, morality, kindness, even if none of it is real. Why? Because people don't want the truth. They want comfort. They want stability. They want a leader who looks just and noble, even if he's not. So the wise leader, Machiavelli said, must know how to be a fox to spot traps and a lion to scare away wolves. Be both. Be clever. Be bold. But above all, be silent when it matters most. Because the moment you speak too much, you give away your playbook, your intentions, your weaknesses. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in his cynicism. It was in his accuracy. He didn't create manipulation. He just described it. And in a world that punishes transparency, silence becomes a weapon. Today, this philosophy still rules. Look at politicians, CEOs, billionaires. The smartest ones say the least. They talk in circles, drop vague phrases, then disappear behind handlers and press teams, not because they don't have opinions, but because they know that opinions cost power. Machiavelli would have loved modern PR. He'd call it what it is. The art of looking good while hiding the truth. And that is how you win, because in the game of power, those who show their cards lose, and those who master silence survive. Silence isn't emptiness, it's calculation. Every time you speak, you give something away. A belief, a fear, a weakness. But when you stay silent, people start projecting. They wonder what you're thinking. They assume you're confident. They start fearing what they don't know. This is psychological warfare. The mind hates uncertainty. It tries to fill the void with meaning. And in that space, you gain control. Machiavelli understood this. Modern psychology confirms it. There's a concept called the illusion of depth. When someone says less, we assume they know more, because we fill in the blanks with our own fantasies. Think of the quiet guy in the room. He doesn't speak. He just watches. People notice him. They assign him mystery, wisdom, danger. Why? Because mystery is magnetic. Now compare that to someone who never stops talking, explaining, defending, oversharing. They might be smart, but they lose power with every word. There's another term, cognitive miserliness. The brain doesn't want to do extra work. So when someone speaks less, we do the thinking for them. In that silence, you become anything we imagine: a genius, a threat, a leader. That's why great negotiators speak less. Why skilled interrogators let suspects ramble. Why powerful people let others fill the silence. Because silence is a mirror, and everyone sees what they fear or desire. This isn't about manipulation. It's about discipline. You don't speak just to fill the air. You speak when it changes the outcome. Strategic silence makes people lean in. It creates tension. It forces others to reveal themselves. Think of the best chess players. They don't rush. They wait. They force you to show your move first. Now, think of life that way. In relationships, silence after an insult can be more powerful than an angry reply. In arguments, silence can turn the spotlight on the other person's behavior. In business, a pause can make your offer feel more valuable. In politics, a quiet leader during chaos feels more composed, more in control, because silence doesn't just withhold information. It demands respect. Even animals understand this. A tiger doesn't roar before it hunts. It watches, waits, strikes. Words are emotional. Silence is psychological, and psychology always wins in the long game. But here's the twist. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means presence. The trick is choosing when to speak, not avoiding speech altogether. Machiavelli never said, "Be mute." He said, "Be strategic." That means listening more, watching reactions, reading intentions, then responding with precision, because the one who speaks least often has the most power. They just don't need to prove it. Sometimes silence isn't quiet. It just wears a mask. It's called ambiguity, saying things that sound profound but reveal nothing. Politicians use it. Diplomats perfect it. Machiavellian minds live by it. Why? Because clarity locks you in. Ambiguity keeps you free. When you're clear, people can challenge you. When you're vague, they can't pin you down. You can deny, reframe, shift. You stay in control. Machiavelli knew rulers needed flexibility. Not honesty, flexibility. A statement like, "I understand the people's concerns." What does that really mean? Nothing specific. But it sounds caring, strong, wise. It lets people hear what they want to hear. Ambiguity works because people are desperate to assign meaning. Just like with silence, the brain fills in the blanks, but this time you're providing the outline, letting others do the painting. You seem agreeable to everyone, but you've committed to no one. It's not cowardice, it's strategy. There's a reason master manipulators rarely answer questions directly. They pivot, redirect, use phrases like, "That's an interesting point. There's more to that story. Let's not jump to conclusions." These statements keep them in motion, untouchable. Even in war, this tactic is used. Never reveal your position. Keep the enemy guessing. Ambiguity is the fog, and in fog, the strongest army can get lost. In social life, it's the same. A vague compliment can charm. A non-committal answer can de-escalate. People may say, "Be authentic, be honest." But raw honesty is a luxury of those without enemies. Power demands subtlety. Speak with layers, speak with options, speak with escape routes. The goal is not to deceive, it's to protect your leverage. You're not lying, you're framing. Big difference. A king doesn't tell the world what he's planning. He speaks in riddles, proverbs, carefully chosen metaphors. That's not weakness. That's design. Think of Machiavelli's own writings, often cryptic, interpreted in countless ways. He never fully revealed his allegiance, because his power was in not being pinned down. In modern media, those who rise to the top know this. Every statement is weighed, filtered, calculated. They understand the art of saying something. Without saying anything, you leave the room, and no one is sure what you just said. But they're still thinking about it. That's power. It forces reflection. It creates mystique. It triggers debate. And in that debate, you control the narrative, because ambiguity is not confusion, it's control. And when you master that, you become untouchable. In a world that values accessibility, we often overlook the power of absence. Every time you give someone your full attention, you sacrifice something valuable, your power. Availability is seen as a virtue, but the more you're available, the less people value you. It's paradoxical. Think about it. The more you're around, the more people take you for granted. They expect your presence, your response. Soon, they stop needing you. They begin to believe you're always there. And when someone is always there, they become disposable. But the true master of influence knows this. Make yourself scarce. You don't need to be constantly available to wield power. Instead, make your presence rare. Make it important. Machiavelli himself advised rulers to avoid excessive friendliness. Don't be a constant companion, a predictable ally. Why? Because too much closeness leads to complacency. And once people stop feeling your absence, they'll lose respect. Why do high-level negotiators keep their cards close? Why do leaders often disappear for a time? Because they understand that power is in distance. It's in mystery. The more available you are, the more you lose your value. Think about a famous artist. They don't pump out work every day. They wait. They build anticipation. When they finally show their work, it feels rare. It feels special. But if they showed their work every day, it would lose its impact. People crave what they can't have. This is why personal boundaries are so important. A person with strong boundaries, whether it's physical, emotional, or intellectual, commands respect. When you're always available, you're not protecting yourself. You're giving yourself away. It's why, in politics, people often speak of political capital. A leader's value isn't in how often they're seen, but in how effectively they use their time, their presence, their words. Every interaction is a trade. When you're too generous, you run out of influence. It's the same in personal relationships. Being too available can make you seem weak, desperate for attention, thirsty for validation. A Machiavellian strategist knows this. They understand the value of keeping people on their toes. You don't need to answer every question. You don't need to respond immediately. By making yourself less accessible, you let others come to you. You make your time feel precious. This absence creates desire. Desire creates power. If you want to maintain influence, you need to understand the cost of overexposure. The less you're available, the more people will want you, and the more valuable you become. Remember, it's not just about saying less. It's about being less. Don't waste your power with constant presence. Instead, make every moment you give someone count. In a world full of noise, the real strategists are those who know when to stay silent. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a tool, a weapon, a tactic. To understand why silence is so powerful, let's think of a chess game. When you're playing a master, every move counts. But sometimes the most powerful move is the one you don't make, the one where you let the opponent think you're weak, only to strike when they least expect it. This is Machiavelli's core insight. The silent move is the strategic move. In the political arena, a leader who speaks too much reveals their hand. They show their intentions. They become predictable. A master of influence stays quiet. They play the long game. They build their power in the background. The same applies to business, to relationships, to every facet of life. Think of the most successful negotiators. They don't talk incessantly. They don't rush to answer every question. They ask questions, yes, but they let silence build tension. In this silence, their power grows. It's the same concept as the scarcity principle. By not constantly filling the space with your words, you make each word more significant, each gesture more impactful, each action more calculated. Machiavelli understood this. A prince who speaks too much is a prince who is losing control. Because when you speak too much, you reveal your vulnerabilities. When you remain silent, you hold your cards close. You keep the advantage. Silence also gives you time to think, time to plan, time to weigh the consequences of every action. In fact, the most strategic leaders, those who make the biggest impacts, are often the ones who take a step back, survey the battlefield, and then move with purpose. In modern times, we see this in high-level business negotiations. The best negotiators understand the power of silence. They give you room to speak, to reveal your intentions, while they remain quiet, calculating. Silence isn't about being passive. It's about creating space for action. It's about letting the situation unfold. And when the time is right, you act with precision. This strategy is not just for politicians or business moguls. It applies to everyday life. The key to power in relationships is often knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. When you speak less, people begin to listen more. Silence is the ultimate form of control. It's a message in itself. By saying nothing, you convey that you're not in need of validation, that you're not desperate for attention, that you're in control. Master of strategy doesn't rush in with answers. They wait. They let the opponent make mistakes. They wait for the perfect moment. Then when they speak, it's decisive. It's a move that shifts the entire dynamic. Remember, silence doesn't mean inaction. It means you're acting on a different level, one that requires patience, one that requires timing, one that requires control. Strategic silence is the art of knowing when to stay quiet, to let others expose themselves, to let your power grow behind the scenes. We live in a world where everything is expected to be understood. People demand clarity, answers, and certainty. But what if the most powerful force isn't clarity, but mystery? Machiavelli understood that the perception of mystery is one of the most potent tools of power. When people don't understand you completely, they can't predict you, they can't control you, and most importantly, they can't undermine you. Machiavelli often warned against transparency. For a ruler, to be an open book means to be vulnerable. People can exploit your weaknesses if they know too much, but if you shroud yourself in mystery, you remain a puzzle that others are compelled to solve. And that fascination keeps them at bay. Mystery creates an air of intrigue. It forces others to project their own thoughts onto you, and the more they think they know, the more they're likely to misinterpret your intentions. They'll second-guess their actions. And that's when you gain control. This principle goes beyond politics. It's relevant in business, in relationships, and in the social dynamics of everyday life. Think about some of the most successful entrepreneurs. They don't give everything away. They hold back certain details about their companies, their goals, and their next moves. They create an aura of mystery around themselves. This leaves competitors scrambling to keep up, chasing after a vision they can't quite grasp. The same principle applies in relationships. When you lay everything on the table too soon, you lose the allure. People begin to think they understand you, and once they understand you, they no longer feel compelled to pursue. But if you leave gaps, unanswered questions, moments of uncertainty, you keep the curiosity alive. This doesn't mean being deceitful or manipulative. It means understanding that people are drawn to what they can't easily understand. When they can't predict your every move, they stay alert, they pay attention, and they engage with you on a deeper level. A leader who reveals everything weakens their own power. By keeping their cards close, they remain formidable. Their mystery is their strength. Machiavelli wrote that rulers should be like lions and foxes. Lions are powerful, but they are predictable. Foxes, on the other hand, are elusive and cunning. They can slip through cracks. They can hide in plain sight. In the world of influence, being a fox is often more effective than being a lion. Mystery breeds respect. It breeds caution. When people don't know your next move, They approach you carefully, measuring their actions. And in that hesitation, you gain control. Uncertainty isn't weakness, it's a strategic advantage. When you leave others guessing, they become more likely to make mistakes. And in those mistakes, you find your opportunity. The power of mystery is timeless. Whether you're a ruler, a business leader, or simply navigating personal relationships, the more you let people wonder about your intentions, the more power you gain. Machiavelli's philosophy is not about idle theory or abstract wisdom. It's a practical guide to surviving, thriving, and seizing power in a world that doesn't play by the rules. It's about understanding that silence, when wielded strategically, can be as powerful as action. In a world where every word, every gesture, and every moment of availability is scrutinized, the truly powerful know how to remain silent, to retreat into the shadows, and to allow their actions or lack thereof to speak louder than words. Shut up and win. It's a simple mantra, but one with profound implications. It's about choosing the right moments to act, to speak, and to remain silent. It's about controlling the narrative, not through loud proclamations, but through calculated silence and deliberate non-action. It's the ability to remain composed, enigmatic, and unpredictable. To win, you must learn to detach yourself from the expectations of others. Machiavelli teaches us that it's not enough to simply be right or virtuous. You must be willing to sacrifice your own image, your own comfort, to protect your goals, your power, your future. In the grand chessboard of life, the player who masters silence is often the one who controls the game. They don't reveal their strategies. They don't play by the rules, they simply win. So the next time you find yourself in a high-stakes situation, remember Machiavelli's lesson. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Shut up and win. If you found this video helpful or thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this.